Welcome to Star Wars Action News, helping Star Wars collectors collect better. This is Brock, Star Wars Action News Book Club Liaison, with a review of Star Wars Battlefront Twilight Company by Alexander Freed, and the young reader in books Star Wars A New Hope, The Princess, the Scoundrel, and the Farm Boy by Alexandra Bracken, Star Wars The Empire Strikes Back, So You Want to Be a Jedi by Adam Gidwitz, and Star Wars Return of the Jedi Beware the Dark Side by Tom Engelberger. Review copies courtesy of Del Rey Books and Penguin Random House Listening Library. As we approach Black Friday and the holiday shopping season is quickly upon us, today I'm reviewing 4 recently released titles that you can find in bookstores now. The first, Star Wars Battlefront Twilight Company, is a novel written for adults and/or older teens as a tie-in to the latest installment of the popular Star Wars Battlefront video game franchise, being released November 17th. The main portion of the story takes place around the time of The Empire Strikes Back, and as the cover art suggests, one of the battles within the book is the Battle of Hoth, which is by far the most fun chapter of the book and one that really got the feel of the video game in novel form. We do flash back to battles during the Clone Wars and to more local battles between warlords pre-galactic Civil War every few chapters or so, which eventually do tie in to the main plot and characters. This book reads more like a war novel than most Star Wars novels do, and what I mean by that, it's more military-focused, where, say, Dark Disciple has more of a Force focus, though the events took place during the Clone Wars. Ground battles, talk of munitions, the ranks, military structure are rightly peppered throughout, and we get the realities of what the everyday of fighting a war is like. The nature and premise of the book has these grunts fighting not just the big battles like the Battle of Hoth, but mostly smaller raids and strategic offensives. Yet, there isn't a strong villain to thwart, or a MacGuffin plot objective that would normally ground a novel, even as a spine to hang strong character work upon. The book opens with a squad of Twilight Company soldiers taking out a small squad of Imperials, with strategy you might find in the video game. And then we read about a few more battles, and then eventually we read about them about to enter a battle, but then we pick up after the battle. Don't get to read about the battle. So after a while, the book starts to get repetitive. Not just in the hopping from battle to battle, objective to objective, but the slow character progression of the protagonist as well. This is one time I think 400 pages was just a bit too much. There are many named characters in the book, especially members of Twilight Company that we get to know enough character traits about so we can tell them apart. But as this is a military war novel, many die along the way, and with so many original characters here, anyone can die in any battle at any time, which was a nice change for a Star Wars novel. There is also a cameo appearance by one famous rogue pilot of the Millennium Falcon, although he's never named. That scene was certainly fun to read. There are 3 characters that are given the most focus. The rebel soldier Namir is the main character of the book, and we read about how he is a career soldier. All he knows how to do is fight. And in my head, I pictured Marcus from the Gears of War video game the entire time. The author gives us copious backstory and goes in for a character arc with Namir, but it didn't completely land for me. A big reason being that repetitiveness of the book and ideas I mentioned earlier. Namir seems to spin his wheels too long, and the character's reluctance to accept more responsibility grew old. If Namir is reluctant about growing as a person and in his career, then why should I be invested in it? Namir's character has some great moments with Governor Chalice, an Imperial leader Twilight Company captures and then uses intel from to strike at the Empire. And she is a great idea for a character. She has a confrontation with Vader in the Echo Base that drives some great stuff for her character-wise afterwards, with her mental and physical anguish that confrontation causes. I like this character the most of all of them in the book, and I loved that you didn't know whether Twilight Company and the rebels can completely trust her or not. It added some mystery to the proceedings, but like Namir, she didn't learn or grow enough as a character for me either. The most interesting character premise in the novel is Thara Nyendi, a human native of the planet Sullust, whose current job is being an Imperial stormtrooper on her home planet. She needs the money to support her family and likes the perks of the job. But we don't return back to her as much as you would think, and of course her story ties in with Namir's by the end, but I like the idea we have her point of view, an Empire soldier's point of view, represented, even if ever so briefly, because don't forget, in the game, you can also play as the Empire. Star Wars Battlefront Twilight Company is a fine read, but truth be told, had I not been reviewing this book for you today, I could see this would be a book I would keep on my bedside table, and the kind of book you would read a few chapters before bed, get your fill, put it down to go to sleep, and the next night or two, maybe a few nights later, pick it up again. And that's not an insult to the book. In fact, it's a great compliment, because back when I played Star Wars Battlefront on my Xbox, I did exactly that. I played a few levels, and then moved on. It was never a game that I stayed up late having to play, quote, one more level, just one more level, you know? The episodic nature of this novel allows for that sort of reading, and the author's writing style, descriptive prose, and nature of the plot allows you to get right back in the swing of things when you do return, not feeling like you missed a beat. I just would have liked this book a little shorter. Star Wars A New Hope, The Princess, the Scoundrel, and the Farm Boy by Alexandra Bracken, Star Wars The Empire Strikes Back, So You Want to Be a Jedi by Adam Gidwitz, and Star Wars Return of the Jedi, Beware of the Dark Side by Tom Engelberger are retellings of the classic movies aimed at kids 8 to 12 years of age. The language is more modern, and the analogies to exemplify the points are sometimes silly or too on the nose. But likely kids will enjoy that sort of thing. For example, descriptions of Chewbacca like a barbershop floor stood up, and he speaks like a combination of a dog and an opera singer. C-3PO described as, quote, a British butler with his underwear in a twist. But the idea of these stories being retold for a new audience has merit. And with these audio productions that I listened to for this review, instead of reading them, I think the publisher was definitely onto something with this set. Strangely, each of the 3 retellings is written by a different author, and on top of that, in 3 different approaches and styles, and as a result, as you would expect, with various degrees of success. The most successful approach of the 3, for me, was the first, A New Hope, The Princess, the Scoundrel, and the Farm Boy, by Alexandra Bracken. She breaks out the story into 3 parts. Leia tells the story of the movie from her point of view from the Tentative 4 through the destruction of Alderaan. The Scoundrel portion starts with Han Solo at the cantina right before meeting Ben and Luke, and goes through the escape from the Death Star. The Farm Boy ends the book, starting from sitting at the chess table in the Falcon with Leia right before the gunner sequence through the end of the movie. This approach really reminded me of the old Star Wars radio drama, and I heard in the author's note she used that script as one of her sources. The strongest entry of the 3 in approach, added material, and character depth, the author's love of the source material came through in spades in this entry. Star Wars The Empire Strikes Back, So You Want to Be a Jedi is skewed toward and written for an even younger audience than the New Hope one. The premise is, you are Luke Skywalker. It is written in the second person. It's like an instruction of sorts, a lot of, you peer up at your feet, they are trapped in ice, or you ignite your lightsaber, it is silvery blue, etc., and then recounts what happens in the scenes we know well. Perhaps this second person approach would read in a book better than here listening to it in the audiobook. They do get around to telling the Han and Leia storyline eventually, and there the story is told in the third person, and I think it works better overall as a technique. Though in that storyline, since you are Luke Skywalker, the narrator skips, quote, the mushy parts, explaining it isn't relevant to a young Jedi in training. Also notable about this author's approach is the story is broken up every chapter or so by Jedi training lessons. They start with breathing exercises, basic meditation techniques mostly, and then into centered balancing, and eventually into teaching strong life lessons of empathy and compassion. One about communication without speaking was a highlight. I think kids might actually enjoy trying these exercises, and contrary to my position on the second-person point of view of the story, I think many of the Jedi training chapters work great in the audio, but perhaps wouldn't work as well in print format. Star Wars Return of the Jedi, Beware of the Dark Side by Tom Engelberger tells the story in quite a straightforward manner. There's no structure difference or telling the story from a character's point of view like the other two, just a straight-up third person. The writing here is written younger, but not as young as the Empire one, not as flippant as that one. The author does take some understandable liberties. He moves the Darth Vader arriving on the Death Star scene to after the sail barge battle. He calls out Luke's anger and teetering on the dark side in the Jabba section, and he has Luke ask Obi-Wan about his mother on Dagobah, which Ben does not answer. All of which I thought were nice decisions, especially that last example, given the target audience, and that they likely have some knowledge of the prequels. In that same vein, of particular interest to me and likely to many of you, is the additional material added to all 3 retellings to accentuate the story, the backstory, and the characters' points of view. And these vary from character introspection in key scenes, like for example getting into Han's head about why he is charging the squad of stormtroopers on the Death Star, Darth Vader's feelings on Anakin Skywalker, Luke recalling how Beru took him to Anchorhead and showed him pictures of trees when he arrives on Yavin 4, or Princess Leia's insecurity about how the galaxy doesn't take her seriously. And these were hit or miss for me. There is a great added scene in the first book of Wedge training Luke to use the X-Wing simulator, and in the Return of the Jedi retelling, there's a nice scene of Mon Mothma taking Leia aside, trying to get her to reconsider going to Endor with the team. A scene they added that I just did not care for at all is the return of the girl with Han Solo at the Mos Eisley Cantina before Ben and Luke come to the table. That whole exchange felt forced and unnecessary, even though many of us have seen the black and white alternate cut, which includes a woman with Han Solo before Luke and Ben arrive. There were also some details I learned and fun retcons throughout all 3 books. For example, I didn't know his name was pronounced Nien Numba, and that he stole the shuttle Tidarium instead of the Bothans. The author calls out R2-D2 remembering having, quote, rocket thrusters, but they haven't worked in ages, when R2-D2 is about to jump off the sail barge. There's a suggestion that Leia may not actually have memories of her mother, that these, quote, memories may have been made up by a very young girl who now believes them as her truth. 3PO tells the Ewoks about events in the prequels, and get this, Greedo doesn't shoot. I mean at all. And Vader doesn't scream, no, when he throws the Emperor down the shaft. Now, as I understand it, all this new material, all the books that are coming out now, everything is now canon, right? I'm not trying to stir a pot. We'll just need to get a judge's ruling on this, we'll just say that. The last thing I want to mention is, for the audiobooks, they kept the same narrator for all 3, Mark Thompson. And Mr. Thompson does some good voices. His Kenobi, his Yoda, Vader, Han Solo are all close enough approximations to the real thing, and his Ewok was fun. In The Princess, Scoundrel, and the Farm Boy, a female narrator, Rebecca Solar, does the princess section, the first third of the book, and also comes back as the voice of Leia as appropriate through the second 2 parts. She is greatly missed in Empire and Jedi, and the use of actual Star Wars sound effects was most welcome. Wookiee roars and R2 beeps, ambient Death Star noise. They added filters on the Vader and 3PO voices that appropriately accentuated that dialogue. And a lot of John Williams' score was used, and used well, underneath the narration, though sometimes in different scenes than the music appears in the movie. Like during the first part of the speeder bike sequence, the chase through Coruscant music from Attack of the Clones is heard underneath, and during the gunner sequence of A New Hope, they use the music under the Jabba skiff battle, titled The Return of the Jedi. The Princess, the Scoundrel, and the Farm Boy, So You Want to Be a Jedi, and Beware the Dark Side, have a lot to offer for the younger set, and, some of the pandering aside, adults likely can get a little something out of these as well. For elementary and middle school kids who are interested in Star Wars, who are ready for more lengthy books, these add just the right amount of new material to the familiar story while telling the story in a way they never read or heard before. I admit I was skeptical about the need for this series, but I was won over by the earnestness in which this project was approached and executed. I will likely introduce this set to my kids when the time is right. So there you have it. I hope after this review, you're thinking about picking up one or all of these books for yourself, your children, or as a gift this holiday season. And if you do, please remember to go to the Star Wars Action News homepage and click on that Amazon button so you can help support the show while you shop. For Star Wars Action News and the Star Wars Action News Book Club, this is Brock. Thanks for watching this video. You can see full episodes of Star Wars Action News with more collecting news and reviews at swactionnews.com. We also have thousands of toy and collectible photos in our photo gallery. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. May the pegs be stocked and the Force be with you.